Welcome to your Hometown Solutions, where experts meet to discuss your home, family, finances, garden, and garage. We try to cover everything here at your Hometown Solutions. I'm your host, Jean Newell with Waterview Realty. And in the studio with me today, we have an attorney who's going to be talking about bankruptcy, criminal law, who might be responsible for things in your family if someone decides to break the law, all kinds of great information. So get a pencil, get a paper. We're going to learn a lot about the law and you. Before we go into our interview, I'd like to invite you all to go to our website at yourhometownsolutions.com. That's solutions with an S. And there you'll find all of our experts, their contact information. We also have a lot of learning tools. So if you've been watching HGTV and you're wanting to know how to redecorate, or you want to know about mortgages, or whatever you want to learn about, you'll find it there at yourhometownsolutions.com. Also, we have a free publication called Extra Equity, which is about a 45-page booklet that is free of charge. Just give us your address and we'll send it out to you. That covers everything that you need to know about purchasing real estate, about moving, how to arrange furniture. Just about everything that you want to know. So remember, yourhometownsolutions.com. If you would like to get in touch with me, my name is Jean Newell, and my number is 321-480-1574. We usually have Jonathan Lack with Lack & Lack Chartered on the show with me, that we talk a little bit about ways to save your home if you're unemployed and so forth. Unfortunately, Jonathan's out sick today, so I'm going to mention a little bit about how to save your home, because we like to talk about ways that we can save your home or your business, and then all the things that are available to you if you have to go to the extreme of bankruptcy or closing a business. So one of the things that Jonathan talks about is the Hardest Hit program, and that is a statewide funding, and I'm going to give out his number because I don't want to say the wrong things. His number is 321-953-5115. That's 953-5115. And again, you can find him on our website. But the Florida's Hardest Hit program was designed for people who are out of work or have been out of work but have even a job, but they're underemployed by 10%. And this funding will pay a good year in the rears if you are behind on your payment. And if you still haven't found a job and things are really looking bad at this point financially, it'll also help you make payments in the future up to about a year. So it's about $42,000 per person that you may or may be able to qualify for. And that's a wonderful program that most people don't know about. Now, one of the things that we do want to discuss, we like to give you information. This is all about experts meeting to discuss the things that you may or may not know. So I'd like to welcome right now Eric Morgan. And Eric, welcome to the studios, and let's talk about criminal law, bankruptcies, and all those negative things, but how we can put a spin on it and maybe help somebody get out of their financial mess. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you so much, Jean. Thanks for having me.
And you're with Morgan Law, PA. Is that, yes, Morgan Law, PA.
Yeah, Morgan Law, PA. Not related to
any of the other Morgans.
Any of the other Morgans that are all over the airwaves.
It must be a popular name to get to become an attorney. I don't know.
I know three other attorneys in this area with the same last name. One does divorce, one also does criminal, another I believe is in real estate. So
it's funny. That is funny. Your phone number is 321-253-6223. You're located on Aurora Road, just off of Wickham, and right here in the Melbourne area. But there's a lot of things that people don't realize, and we like to touch base on finances and family and your home. And tell us a little bit about, let's talk about criminal law first. What exactly is I don't want to say the ideal client, that doesn't sound right. Who are you helping? What kind of criminal law is coming into your office?
Sure. Criminal law is kind of interesting because it's, if you can imagine, the medical world, if if everything you ever heard about medicine or hospitals or doctors was related to just the most horrific disease, for example, Ebola, if anytime you ever were to hear about medical news in the media, it was only about Ebola or some horrendously infectious, terrible disease, you'd probably have a very negative view of anyone with a medical problem or people that treat people with a medical problem. But the reality is most criminals, people charged with a crime, are very young, and most of the charges typically are misdemeanor, or even if they're felony, they're oftentimes cases where the damages or injuries or financial problems that were created by the crime are actually very minor. I mean, a law was broken, but in many, many criminal cases that I've had, there really are no significant injuries, but a law was broken and people are charged. But what we do hear about, are the Casey Anthonys and the people that murder children and the most horrific criminals, and that's how we, perceive the whole system. But that's maybe 1%, to pull a number out of thin air. I mean, that's not your typical case.
So I'm always curious about that. You hear watch a lot of television shows and the L.A. law and all that. If somebody really has, let's say, a whole bunch of traffic tickets and they've stuffed them in their glove compartment, and all of a sudden they put a warrant out for their arrest.
Right.
Now, that's something that you would get involved with, right? If they actually come and arrest them, can they go to their front door and arrest them, or do they have to put out a summons, or how do they do that?
Well, what you're describing probably would end up being driving on a suspended. They didn't pay the tickets. They're out there driving. A cruiser pulls up behind them, runs a tag, sees that, it's owned by somebody with a suspended license, and that, then they're stopped, et cetera, and so forth. And yes, many people, especially young people with kids, maybe with underpaying, jobs, they're working for $10 an hour or whatever, they're struggling to pay their rent, pay their auto insurance, make their car payment, pay their kids' daycare, and things fall through the cracks. Mm-hmm. They get a ticket, they can't pay, the license gets suspended, then there's more fines and fees. It creates a snowball effect. So these are just people trying to get through life just like everybody else, but they just don't quite have enough money to just get to work and back in the car and get everything paid for properly. Mm-hmm.
The one things that we always want to keep people off the street are the DUIs. DUIs, right? I always get that confused. I have a little dyslexia. Yes, those people that are frequent and serial criminals, I guess you would call them, that are out there driving on a suspended license. They've already had a couple DUIs and so forth. And those are the kind of people that we want to, of course, keep off the road if we can. But I want to make sure that people understand that if you find yourself in some kind of a situation, you've been summoned, or the police have pulled you over, is that the kind of client that would be calling you, that if they got pulled over from running a red light or anything like that? Is
right.
that?
I mean, yeah, I handled. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to handle traffic citations. That's civil. That's not criminal. Just mm-hmm. Running a red light or a speeding ticket, something like that. That's a occasion where the police have stopped you, but you're not charged with a crime. It's just a civil citation. But I also handle DUIs, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. and people, they go out to the restaurants, the bars, they have a few too many, or, sometimes it's people who are taking prescription medication that they've been prescribed, but mm-hmm. it's caused them to be impaired.
That's right. And there's a lot of laws now. I know I worked for builders who used to put on little parties at night for the real estate agents. And they got to the point where they would not serve any liquor at all, whether it was wine or sangria, anything, because you can be held responsible if someone were to drink at your function and then go out and get in a car wreck or something like that. So
it's theoretically possible, mm-hmm. but you'd have to have quite a lot of evidence of mm-hmm. A specific person pushing another person way past the limit. Mm-hmm. I've never actually seen a case like that. It's that kind of 1 in a million case.
You know, the one thing that I hear about all the time is the teenagers and the young adults that are still at home because they can't find a job. And we're now becoming kind of a third generation of people under the same roof. A lot of people have their grandkids, their kids, or their parents, and we've got a multi generational under the same roof. And some of these kids, because they don't have work, they don't have anything to do, they're out roaming around at 3:00 in the morning. My mother always said nothing good happens after midnight. But they get themselves into trouble. And how can that affect the parents? And as an example, I have a friend who happened to have a young adult living. Well, he wasn't supposed to be living at her house, but he was dating her daughter. But when she would go to work, little did she know he was in her house selling drugs, and she did not know this. So had he gotten busted by the police, couldn't she actually be facing charges as actually having a drug house and being kind of an innocent bystander but involved in that civil case?
I think the issue that you're talking about is one known as civil forfeiture, which has been increasingly used by law enforcement, both at state and federal levels. It's a way of, in a quick and dirty and not fair way, really, dealing with criminal areas or places, people, or entities that the police have identified as sort of a criminal area without having to charge people and prove a crime, mount a case. They're able to just sort of, in a sweeping way, say, oh, this is a drug home, and just seize it. And what's ended up happening is law enforcement agencies all over the country have found that they can actually turn a profit seizing things. They're not even proving crimes, but they're seizing things, and then they're being sold, in these sales, as it was a pot house or whatever, right, at fire sale prices. And, that's how some agencies, sadly enough, are funding their operations. And it's almost a criminal enterprise, in a sense, by government agencies where people, the owner is not being charged with an actual crime. It's just this sort of...
it's like an aid and assisting a criminal.
It's almost like eminent domain or something. It's just the building is condemned as a criminal establishment and it's taken away. But that doesn't necessarily mean the owner was charged with knowing or anything was proven.
So that's where you could step in and help that homeowner by proving that they didn't even know any of this was happening. This wasn't even somebody that was living at her place, but it was just, I told her, get him out of there as fast as you can because you sure don't want to be wrapped up in that mess. Well,
what would I've actually never taken on a case quite like that, but what would have to happen is you'd have to sue the agency that is seizing the asset, whatever it is, whether it's a house or a car or whatever it is. You'd have to sue them and try to get an injunction, probably from a federal judge, to stop them from doing what they're doing. And typically they're doing it to little people who may not even be able to afford an attorney. And because they're not being charged with a crime, they're not even given a public defender. So, if they don't have money to hire a hotshot federal attorney to seek an injunction against a whole police force, these people are very vulnerable. They're not going to, oftentimes they may not even have money to mount a case like that.
I'm wondering now, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head because we do handle a lot of real estate information here. What if I have a rental property and someone that's renting that property from me is committing some kind of a crime? How would that affect me as the homeowner? The same thing if I own the home that they're renting? I know everything's on a case-by-case situation. But
again, if it got to the point where it became the subject of a civil forfeiture, as being this sort of drug house, then that owner could have a problem. Ideally, what police should be doing is not going after locations.
Right.
Right. A geographical location is not committing a crime. They should be
right.
doing